Viveka Chudamani class. So this class is going to be a little bit different than our normal classes, which we'll discuss, in the later in the end of the class. Viveka Chudamani is a grantha. It is a work of Adi Shankaracharya. It is a Vedantic work. It is not like a Bhakti grantha that, like a Vishnu Sahasranama Stotram or, Mahishasura Mardhini Stotram. So it is not a Bhakti grantha, but it is a Vedanta grantha. So that's why I thought we need to have a little bit of introduction about Vedanta, about the subject matter of Vedanta before going into the text proper. So today it is going to be an introduction class. And since today, and in even in later parts of the class, in the later classes as well, we will be introducing a lot of technical terms. We will be introducing a lot of technical terms that needs revision. So what I thought was I'll put it into a nice, like a presentation, for this class. Maybe in later class, if I don't have time, I'll just do with the book proper. So we will have the shloka proper, and then we'll talk about different shlokas, etc. And so at least in this class, more emphasis is going to be given for the meaning of shlokas rather than chanting of shlokas. We will be chanting all the shlokas, but I don't want, like more emphasis is going to be rather than giving for how precisely you chant. I want to give more importance to what meaning that the shloka conveys. I will record the shlokas, just shlokas, and then share it with you guys if anybody wants to memorize, if anybody wants to commit these shlokas to memory. So let's go to the introduction part. Before going, the Viveka Chudamani itself, it's like an introduction. It is like a 101 course. So it goes from basics to the highest level. So let me give introduction for what is Vedanta, etc. before going into Viveka Chudamani proper. So let us look at this shloka in the screen. It basically tells what are the common things between an animal and a human being, and how human being is different from an animal. Ahara nidra bhaya maithunancha samanyametat pashubhir naranam buddhirhi tesham adhiko visheshaha buddhya vihinaha pashubhis samanaha, says the shloka. The first two lines says what are the common things between a human being and an animal. What are the common things? Ahara, the urge to eat food. Everybody will get hungry. Even a bacteria needs food for its survival. Ahara, to eat food. Nidra, everybody needs sleep. Some people, human beings, we sleep daily, and animals, they also sleep daily. And in addition, they all hibernate, like polar bears or penguins, they sleep for 6 months, for all the winter, etc. So even nidra is common for humans and animals. Next is bhayam. Bhayam means getting fear. Either fear of life, either that we will die, that fear will be there, or somebody will take my food, that fear will also be there. Even a dog, some dogs will not like other people touching their food because they are fearing that other people might steal their food. So bhaya, it is there for everyone. And next is maithunam. Maithunam, it is the urge to procreate. It is the urge to make babies. Even animals make babies, human make babies as well. Says ahara nidra bhaya maithunancha samanyametat pashubhir naranam. Pashu here means animal, nara here means human. So all these four qualities are common between humans and animals. What is the differentiating factor? Buddhirhi tesham. Buddhihi, intellect, ability to think, ability to discern things. That is the only thing that is different from human beings from an animal, human beings and animals. Buddhirhi tesham Adhiko Visheshaha. The human beings has got one adhika, has got one extra faculty, which is buddhihi. And the shloka, the Subhashitani goes on to say, buddhya vihina pashubhis samanaha. Those human beings who are without any buddhi, those human beings who are without any intellect, without discriminative powers, buddhya vihina pashubhis samanaha, they all are equivalent to animals, says the shloka. So this is how much our Shastra gives importance to ability to think on oneself. Shastra says, do not follow anything blindly. You think, and if it makes sense to you, you follow that. And because of the ability to think, because of the ability for a free will. So buddhya, we think and then we act upon our intellect, right? A dog or a cat does not have a free will. Those things that a dog and cat they do, they are called as instinctive actions. So those things are already pre-programmed onto the dog or cat's brain, but only humans can, because of their ability to think, they have free will. And if I have free will, I can do things for a certain thing, right? I can have goals because I'm not pre-programmed. I can think on my own. So I will always have goals. So Shastra says there are 4 goals for a human being, and it is called as Purushartha. Purusha means human. Artha, the literal meaning of Artha is wealth, etc. But here Artha means goals. So Purushartha means goals of human beings. The first goal, whatever we do, they all will, the goals for all our action can be classified into the following 4. We will have, n number of goals, ananta goals, infinite goals, but they can be classified into 4 subject matters. One is security. We do things in order to secure ourselves, means to lead a good life, to lead a good life, to just maintain our life. That the food we eat, we absolutely need to eat food in order to live. So that is kind of our security. And a roof on our top, we absolutely need that in order to protect ourselves from all the elements. The clothes we wear, they all will come under security classification. So that is goal number 1. And the second goal is to have a happy life. The first one is to have a life. The second one is to have a happy life, happily and comfortably. Meaning that we know there are several people in the world, there are like crores and crores of people in the world who cannot even afford a next meal. But we are not like that. We can afford a next meal. In fact, we can even choose what our next meal can be. There is a saying that says, that goes on like, beggars are not choosers. So those people who are in the food stamps, they cannot choose what they want to eat. So they are working for their security. They are working for their food security. But thankfully, we are not like that. We can choose what our next meal can be. There are several people who live in huts, 15 people cramped into one little house. We are not like that. We can design our own house. If we are seeing house for rent, at least we can see, okay, I want A, B, C, D, E, whether the house I'm renting has got all these things or not. We have ability to choose. So now we are in the second level of happiness. So first one is security, absolutely bare minimal things for living. Second is happiness, meaning living a comfortable life. And third one is peace. What is peace? There is a saying that goes on like this. You can buy a bed, but you cannot buy sleep. It's a very profound saying. You can buy a bed with how much ever money you have got, but you cannot buy sleep. There are so much clinics there. I have seen an advertisement for a sleeping clinic. Apparently they specializes, those doctors in the clinic specializes on making you how to sleep, in order to teach you how to sleep. See, when we are kids, sleep came like natural thing. But as we get older, even to get a half an hour of sleep, we should have got a lot of punya, they say. So why don't we get sleep? Because there is something or the other which is bothering us, and that's affecting our peace. If you have peace in your life, then you should get sleep normally. But we don't get sleep. Everybody has got this problem. So the third thing that everybody wants after security and happiness is to have peace in life. And that can be manifested in different ways. Some people will donate to charity. Some people will donate their time to help out other people. Even in this group, we have someone who may make masks to help the COVID, to help the COVID affected people, or, to help others. So that gives them peace, right? So peace can be the one more goal of human life. And Shastra gives all these things a name. Once I tell you the name, you guys will understand where I'm going. Artha, Kama, and Dharma. Purushartha, we all know 4 Purusharthas: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. In every Sankalpa, we say Dharma, Aksha, Kama, Mokshancha, Chaturvita, Pala Purushartha, Siddhyartham. But we don't know what is Dharma, what is Artha, what is Kama. So this is called as Dharma. Dharma is saving in terms of punya to lead a happy life, both either in this janma or in the other janmas. And Artha means security, absolutely bare minimal things that are needed to lead a life. And Kama is whatever things that we need to lead a comfortable life. So we have to differentiate between Artha and Kama. And these 3 things everybody understands. But there is one more thing that Shastra says that we should be working on. Do we know what that is? It is called as moksha. There is no English translation for the word moksha. Normally people translate moksha into freedom, but it is an incomplete translation. So we will refer moksha as moksha itself, as there is no proper translation for moksha. And what is moksha? Is to get oneself relieved from the cycle of birth and death. We Sanatana Dharmis, we believe in karma theory. And what is karma theory? Whatever the actions, whatever the experience that we have in this life, it is because of whatever actions we did in our previous life. And whatever actions that we are going to do in this life will affect our experiences in our next life. So we believe in birth and death cycle, and moksha is that thing which gives you freedom from birth and death cycle. So that is the ultimate aim. That should be the ultimate aim. That's why Shastra says moksha as Parama Purushartha. Parama means highest. So highest Purushartha that a human being should have is moksha. And moksha is not only that thing, so we think that security, peace, and happiness can be obtained from an external source. We do things, we rely on other things for our security, for our peace, and for our happiness, right? So we rely on money for our security, peace, and happiness in these days. So we think that, okay, if we have money, we can buy food, we can lead a comfortable life, we can also give some of the money for charity in order to attain Artha, Kama, and Dharma. But Shastra says it is not so. If we rely on other things for security, peace, and happiness, hey, Manushya, you are wrong, says Shastra. Because those things, those external things, they all are unreliable, right? We don't get things whenever we need. Parahaste dhanam vashat. There is a shloka that says the money that is in others' hand, even though it is your money, If it is in someone else's hand, it won't come to your rescue when you need it. We all would have experienced it. Okay, I have money in the bank and there is an ATM. I know that my ATM has got some money, but there is some technical glitch that ATM is not working. What I'm going to do? If I depend upon money for my security, peace, and happiness, all these things are going to be a problem. It is not only money. If I depend upon other person for my security, peace, and happiness as well, it is going to be a problem. People talk about relationships a lot. They say, okay, this relationship is going to give me peace. This relationship is going to give me happiness. But is it so? Every relationship has got a problem. It's got a positive side, but it's got a negative side as well. So Shastra say, if you depend upon an external source of security, peace, and happiness, you are going to be there for a disappointment. And what does Shastra say? Hey, Manushya, you don't have to depend upon an external source for your security, peace, and happiness, because you yourself are an embodiment of these three things. You don't need some other thing, because you yourself are an embodiment of security, peace, and happiness. And realizing that is called as moksha. And that is going to be the subject matter of Viveka Chudamani. How to understand that I myself is a very good source of security, peace, and happiness. I am like a nuclear generator. I am like a nuclear powerhouse of security, peace, and happiness. I don't have to depend upon a battery for security, peace, and happiness. So that's what we are going to see in Viveka Chudamani class. And this is a new knowledge that we are going to learn. For any field of subject, for any knowledge, we need textbooks, right? So for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, there are textbooks. And these textbooks are called as shastra. Shasanat trayate iti shastraha. So we call each and every textbook as shastras. And for artha, for security, there are several shastras. We have Ayurveda, we have Artha Shastra. Ayurveda, if a person is dying, we have remedies from Ayurveda to prevent that person from dying. So we are securing his life. Artha Shastra, we are making money. We are making money just enough for to lead a good life. So those are the shastras for doing artha. If your goal is artha, these are the textbooks you need to follow. And what about kama, happiness? We have Paka Shastra. Books and books have been written about cooking. And we have Natya Shastra. Okay, I want to look a good dance. That is Natya Shastra. There is a Vastu Shastra. I'm not comfortable with just a roof over my head, but I need a nice comfortable living house. Okay, go to Vastu Shastra. You know how to build things, etc. And third one, a little bit more important than security and happiness, is dharma, for peace. Vedas are the main source of dharma. We have several other dharma shastras as well, such as Manusmriti, Narada Smriti, etc. They all tell how to lead a happy life, how to lead a good life. If you do these things, you will get punya. You will either get a Svargaloka or you will get a higher birth in the next Janma, etc. And we all have several shows, several stotras, like Vishnu Sahasranamam, Lalita Sahasranamam, Saundara Lahari. These are all shostras. If we chant them even without knowing their meaning, you will get a punyam, which will be affected depending upon you're either in the next Janma or a place in Svargaloka. You will get all these things. So these are the textbooks of dharma. So what is the textbook of moksha? The only textbook of moksha is called as Vedanta. And Vedanta, so Vedanta is the means by which you get moksha. And Vedanta, it is affected by three major books. They are called as Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, and Bhagavad Gita. I know that I'm giving you a lot of information now, So I'll be putting this in YouTube as well. So if you want, you can always go back and check it and go back and revise it. And I strongly suggest you to do so, because we will be using the technical terms from the next class. Security, peace and happiness we are not going to use. We will be using dharma, artha, kama and moksha from the next class. So let's come back to moksha. And what is the textbook of moksha? It is called as Vedanta, and it comprises of 3 parts: Upanishads, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. So what is Vedanta? Vedanta, the word can be split into Veda and Anta. Veda we all know: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharvana Veda. And Anta means the end portion of Vedas. It is also the logical end and literal end of Vedas as well. Sometimes the literal end need not be a logical end. But in case of Vedanta, the literal end of Veda is also logical end of Vedas, because the first part of Vedas deals with karma. Karma means actions. Whenever you have actions, you have a result, and that result is going to be punya, and that punya will eventually lead you to the next birth. But Veda Anta deals with jnana, knowledge, which gives you moksha. So it is both the literal end and a logical end as well. And Vedanta is also called as Upanishads. And what is the subject matter of Upanishads? Is to reveal our own selves to ourselves as the embodiment, as the source of everything, including security, peace and happiness, which we go on searching for, in an external things. And there are 108 principal Upanishads. Ananto vai Vedaha. There are several Upanishads, endless Upanishads, but 108 are famous. 108 are principal Upanishads. And out of 108, there are 10 major Upanishads that have been commented upon by Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya has written commentary for 10 Upanishads. And since Vedas is called as Shruti, that which is heard is called as Shruti. Those people who are singing will have a Shruti box. Why do they have a Shruti box, and why that is called as Shruti? Because the singer has to keep on listening to the Shruti and has to adjust himself or herself according to the Shruti. In the same way, we always have to listen to Vedas, and we always have to adjust our lifestyles according to the Vedas. That's why Vedas are called as Shrutis. Since the Vedanta is part of the Shruti, Vedanta Upanishads is called as Shruti Prasthana. Prasthana means a mode. Since this is Vedic mode, it is called as Shruti Prasthana. And what are the 10 major Upanishads? There is a shloka: Ishakena Katha Prashna Mundamandukya Tiraha Aitareyancha Chandogyam Bhradaranyakam Tatha. We have Ishavasya Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Aitareya, Chandogya and Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. These are the 10 major source of Brahmajnanam. These are the 10 major source of Atmajnanam or Moksha. So that is the first Prastara, called as Shruti Prastara. Next is Brahma Sutra. Because we have 10 major Upanishads, you can kind of think these Upanishads as individual research paper on a particular topic. There are some seeming inconsistencies in Upanishads. One Upanishad will say one thing, the other Upanishad might contradict the same statement on a different place, on a different on a different thing. So there are seeming inconsistencies in Upanishads. And Vedavyasa, the Badarayana, Vedavyasa, who has split one Vedas into 4, he thought, okay, there are some seeming inconsistencies in the Upanishads. I am going to reconcile everything in a text called as Brahma Sutra. We all would have heard about Brahma Sutra. but only few people know what is Brahma Sutra. So Brahma Sutra, it is a very logical work. It involves a lot of Nyaya Shastra, logical work, comprising of 555 sutras. Sutras are like a formula. Athato Brahma Jignasa, it is one sutra. Janmadhyasya Yataha, it is another sutra. So these are like short formulas that Vedavyasa has composed based upon Upanishads in order to reconcile the seeming inconsistencies between the different Upanishads. And since Brahma Sutra heavily uses Nyaya Sastra, it is called as Nyaya Prasthana. Previously, we've seen Shruti Prasthana. Here, Brahma Sutra is called as Nyaya Prasthana. Next is Bhagavad Gita. We all know Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is told by Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the battlefield of Mahabharata. It also deals in detail about both Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. And since Bhagavad Gita forms part of a Smriti, Smriti and Shruti are two different things. Shruti are Vedas, which is always heard. Smritis are Puranas and Itihasas. Smriti literally means to memorize. Smaranam, when we say Smaranam, we always, meditate upon and we memorize and things like that, right? So Smriti has to do with memory. And Bhagavad Gita is since Bhagavad Gita forms a part of Mahabharata, which is an Itihasa, Bhagavad Gita is called as Smriti Prasthana, the mode of Smritis. And now we have seen Prasthanatraya. We have heard this word. We might have heard the word Prasthanatraya in various occasions, but these are the three Prasthanatrayas. The Upanishads are called as Shruti Prasthana, Brahma Sutra called as Nyaya Prasthana, and Bhagavad Gita called as Shruti Prasthana. These three together are called as Prasthanatraya, and Adi Shankara has written commentaries on all of these three. He has written a Bhagavad Gita Bhashya. He is very famous for his Brahma Sutra Bhashya, and he has written elaborate Bhashyas on all 10 Upanishads called as Upanishad Bhashya as well. But all these three texts are very highly complex and hence will be confusing for a beginner. Okay, I am a beginner. I need to start somewhere. If I start with Upanishads, I am out. I won't even stand for like one Upanishad. Even worse is Brahma Sutra. I don't even understand the first Brahma Sutra, Athato Brahma Jignasa. I won't even understand that. What does that mean? Without proper reading. Okay, I'm out that. Bhagavad Gita, we can try to understand, but it is not going to be systematic. And this fellow Arjuna will, interrupt Krishna a lot of times. So we are not on the level of Arjuna. So we won't understand Arjuna's question. Or we will say, hey, Arjuna is asking all those silly questions. I have more intellect than Arjuna, so I don't want to listen all these things over and over again. So Bhagavad Gita is also some problem. So what Adi Shankara did, for all the Manda Buddhis like us, I will write textbooks, this 101 textbooks. We have this book for dummies, right? So Adi Shankara has written several books like Vedanta for dummies. And these books are called as Prakarana Granthas. So previously we have seen Prasthanatraya, which are Upanishads, which are the original textbooks, which are Upanishads, Brahma Sutra and Bhagavad Gita. And Adi Shankaracharya collected informations from all these three things. And he put everything in a logical way. He pre-digested informations, for a common man, so that a common man can understand. And he put that into form of different texts. And these things and these books are called as Prakarana Granthas. And examples of these books is Tattva Bodha, Atma Bodha, and Viveka Chudamani. I guess now, I hope like now you guys understand why I had to give all this information, because I need to introduce Viveka Chudamani, which is a Prakarana Grantha, The source of Viveka Chudamani is not Adi Shankaracharya's own intellect, but Adi Shankaracharya condensed information from Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutra. He pre-digested everything. He arranged those important information in a very logical and a systematic manner so that beginners like us can understand these things. And Viveka Chudamani is one of a very highly systematic work that Adi Shankaracharya has done. So, time is also going to finish up. Let me finish up with this slide. So now we come to Viveka Chudamani. I have put in, these questions: why, what, who, when, and how. Why should one study Viveka Chudamani? In order to remove misconception about our own selves. Even though it is our own self, we have a lot of misconceptions about us. The major misconception is, I need an external source for being happy. Adi Shankaracharya Upanishad says, no, you don't need an external source for being happy. You yourself are an embodiment of happiness. So we need to understand that. In order to understand that, we need to study Viveka Chudamani. And what is going to be the subject matter of Viveka Chudamani? It is moksha. Viveka Chudamani, it's not going to give you money. It is not for artha. It is not going to teach you how to make tastier food. It is not going to give you any punya whatsoever so that you can encash the punya in your next janma or go to Swarga. No. The subject matter of Viveka Chudamani is moksha, which is freedom from the cycle of birth and death. And who are the adhikaris for Viveka Chudamani? It is beginners like you and I. We don't need any previous knowledge. There are, in college degrees, they say prerequisites. If you want to take this course, you should have finished courses A, B, and C. Are there any prerequisites for Viveka Chudamani? No, you don't need any prerequisites for learning Viveka Chudamani. Every human being, because it deals with moksha, which is a purushartha, so all human beings with buddhi, with intellect, can read Viveka Chudamani. And when should one read Viveka Chudamani? After 60 years or 70 years? No. Everybody can read Viveka Chudamani irrespective of age. In fact, the sooner you read these kind of texts, the better, because it will also help you to lead a very good life, to lead a very calm and peaceful life. And how should you read Viveka Chudamani? You should study it very sincerely. That's why I'm planning to do this type of classes just for Viveka Chudamani, because if somebody wants to go back to the previous class and study, they can always study. If somebody misses a class, because Viveka Chudamani is a highly systematic text. If you miss like one class, you might not understand what the next class is going to be. So I don't want that as a reason for people dropping out of Viveka Chudamani class. I'm going to record it, put it in the internet. You need to listen a couple of times, because see, we want to obtain, we go to a college degree 4 years to do what? To get more money, to lead a comfortable life. For artha and kama, which is so impermanent, money comes, if I spend the money, that money goes. I'm not going to save anything, right? Even for that impermanent thing, I'm spending 12 years of my early life and 4 years of my college life. In my case, I have done PhD, still I'm studying. To do what? I'm not going to get moksha from all this work. I'm going to do artha and kama just to lead a happy, comfortable life. I'm doing all these things. So just for that, if I'm spending so many years of my, so much of my precious time studying this text will give us moksha. So we have to be even more sincere than our other studies. So how to study Viveka Chudamani? Very, very sincerely. So with this, let's finish today's class. We will see shlokas from the next class. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.